So here's the thing about navigation systems. They work great, right up until they don't. And mine decided to stop working at the exact moment I was threading through an asteroid field in uncharted space. Because of course it did. My name is Riker Valdez, and I haul cargo for a living. Mostly legal cargo. Okay, occasionally legal cargo. The point is, I'm not supposed to be crash landing on jungle planets that smell like wet gym socks and regret. But there I was, pulling myself out of my ship, the Tin Phoenix, which was now more tin than Phoenix. Smoke everywhere. Alarm screaming. My left knee making a sound knees should definitely not make. Perfect start to the day. The jungle around me was alive with sounds. Chittering, buzzing, the occasional roar that made my survival instincts sit up and file a formal complaint. I grabbed my emergency kit, checked my blaster, which had exactly 12 shots left, and started looking for anything resembling civilization. That's when I heard it. A high-pitched keening sound that made my chest tighten. I know that sound. Every human knows that sound, buried deep in our DNA. It's the sound of something young and scared and hurting. I followed it through vegetation that seemed personally offended by my existence, getting slapped by leaves the size of my torso. The keening got louder, more desperate. Then I found the clearing. In the middle was a cub, but not like any cub I'd seen in a zoo. This thing was the size of a mastiff, covered in iridescent scales and midnight black fur, with 6 legs and a tail that ended in wicked spikes. Its front leg was caught in a trap, one of those illegal sonic snares that poachers use. Blood, very purple blood, pooled underneath it. The cub's eyes, huge and golden, locked onto mine. It snarled, showing teeth that could definitely end my whole career of being alive. But behind the snarl was pure fear. I took one step forward. The cub snapped at the air. I stopped. Okay, I said, hands up. I get it. Stranger danger. But that trap is going to kill you if someone doesn't help. It whimpered again. The sound hit me right in the weak spot I pretend I don't have. I was 3 steps closer, already calculating how to disable the snare without losing any fingers, when the mother showed up. And by showed up, I mean materialized from the shadows like a nightmare wearing a fur coat made of knives. She was massive, easily the size of my ship's cargo bay. Same iridescent scales, same midnight fur, but her spikes were longer, sharper, and currently pointed directly at my soft human body. Her lips pulled back, revealing fangs that made her cub's teeth look like a gentle suggestion. The growl that came from her chest wasn't a sound, it was a threat, a promise, and an obituary all rolled into one. I did what any reasonable human would do. I froze completely and started talking. So, funny story, I said, voice cracking slightly. I'm not with the people who did this. In fact, I also hate the people who did this. We have that in common. Common ground. That's good, right? She took one step closer. The ground actually shook. Right, so, here's what I'm thinking. I slowly, very slowly, moved my hand to my belt. She snarled louder. Not a weapon, I promise. Just watch. I pulled out my multi-tool, the one thing on this planet that still worked, and held it up. Then, even slower, I tore a strip from my sleeve. The fabric ripped loud in the tense silence. The mother's eyes tracked every movement. I knelt down, far enough from the cub that Mama wouldn't immediately decapitate me, but close enough to show intent. I laid the fabric strip and the multi-tool on the ground between us. I can help, I said. I'm going to help. And I promise you, whoever did this to your kid, they're going to regret it. The mother stared at me. The cub whimpered again, and somehow, impossibly, she stepped aside. Disabling a sonic snare while a giant apex predator watches you like a dinner menu is not covered in any cargo hauler handbook. Just for the record, my hands shook as I crawled toward the cub. It tried to bite me twice, which fair. I'd bite someone too if I was in that much pain. The mother circled us, growling continuously, a sound that vibrated in my bones. Almost there, little guy, I muttered. Or girl, I don't actually know. Sorry for assuming. The snare's release mechanism was designed to be tamper-proof. Joke's on them. I've been tampering with things my whole life. 3 careful cuts with the multi-tool's plasma edge, and the trap sparked, hissed, and went dark. The cub lurched away immediately, limping heavily. The wound was deep, cauterized by the sonic pulse but still bleeding. I grabbed the torn sleeve and moved forward. Big mistake. The mother's paw, and I used the term paw lightly because it was more like a sledgehammer with claws, slammed down inches from my head. The ground cratered. Okay, message received, I gasped. But your kid is still hurt. I held up the fabric, showing her. Then, very carefully, I wrapped it around my own arm to demonstrate. See? Bandage. Helps with the bleeding. I just want to help. The mother's golden eyes narrowed. Then she did something that made my brain short-circuit. She made a sound, a soft chirp, and the cub limped back over. I wrapped the makeshift bandage around the cub's leg, tying it tight enough to help but not hurt. The cub whimpered but didn't pull away. Up close, I could see it was barely more than a baby, maybe a few months old, judging by the way its scales hadn't fully hardened yet. There, I said softly. That should hold until you heal. The cub looked up at me with those enormous eyes and made a sound somewhere between a purr and a rumble. Then it licked my hand with a tongue that felt like warm sandpaper. I grinned despite everything. Yeah, okay, we're friends now. That's when I heard the voices. They came from the east, speaking in trader's cant, the universal language of people doing shady business. My translator caught fragments. Lost the signal. Check the perimeter. Boss wants 3 more cubs by end of cycle. The mother heard them too. Her entire body went rigid, spikes raising like a porcupine made of murder. I looked at the cub, at the mother, at my crashed ship in the distance, then at the voices getting closer. So, I said quietly, those are the people who hurt your kid, and they want more of your family. The mother's growl could have stripped paint. An idea formed. A stupid, dangerous, completely insane idea. The kind of idea that gets people killed. But I looked at that cub with my torn sleeve around its leg, and the promise I'd made suddenly felt a lot more important than my survival instincts. I stood up. The mother's eyes tracked me. I'm going to stop them, I said. I don't know how yet, but I made you a promise. And humans, we're weird about promises. I activated my emergency beacon, the one that broadcasts to any patrol ships in range. It'd take hours for anyone to arrive, maybe longer. But it was a start. The mother watched me walk back toward my ship. She didn't follow, but she didn't leave either. When I turned around halfway there, she was still standing guard over her cub, those golden eyes locked on me. I gave her a small wave. She huffed, a sound that might have been acknowledgement or a warning. Probably both. Back at the Tin Phoenix, I did a damage assessment. Hull integrity at 40%. Engines fried. Weapons system laughable. Emergency rations enough for 3 days. My comm system crackled to life, and a voice came through. This is Lieutenant Kess Thorne of the patrol frigate Steadfast. We received your beacon. What's your status? I keyed the transmitter. Lieutenant, this is Captain Riker Valdez. Status is complicated. How fast can you get here? 8 hours. Are you injured? Not yet, I said. But I've got a situation. There are poachers on this planet hunting endangered species. Syndicate operation. There was a long pause. Captain Valdez, are you telling me you crash-landed in the middle of a syndicate poaching ring? I'm telling you I found a wounded cub and made a promise to a very large, very angry mother, and I'm going to need backup to keep it. Another pause. Captain, the syndicate doesn't mess around. Sit tight and stay hidden until we arrive. I looked toward the jungle, where somewhere a mother was protecting her wounded cub from monsters with ships and weapons and greed. Can't do that, Lieutenant, I said. See you in 8 hours. Try to hurry. I cut the transmission before she could argue. Lieutenant Kess Thorne arrived in 7 hours and 43 minutes, which I appreciated. What I didn't appreciate was her immediate reaction when she saw my new friends. Valdez, why is there a Kralix pack surrounding your crash site? Long story, I called from where I sat, back against the Tin Phoenix. The mother, who I'd started calling Duchess because she had that regal, I will end you with dignity energy, lounged about 10 meters away. Her cub, tiny, despite being the size of a refrigerator, was currently trying to eat my boot. Short version, I helped her kid. Now we're cool. Kess climbed down from her shuttle, hand on her sidearm. She was tall, dark-skinned, with her hair in tight braids, and an expression that suggested she dealt with nonsense like me on a regular basis. Kralix are Class 5 apex predators. They're not cool with anyone. "First time for everything," I said cheerfully. Tiny finally gave up on my boot and flopped next to me, purring like a diesel engine. Duchess chirped at him. He ignored her. Teenage rebellion already strong in this one. Kes stared. "You've domesticated a Kralix cub." "Absolutely not. We just have an understanding. The understanding is that I give him snacks and he doesn't eat my face." I tossed Tiny a ration bar. He swallowed it whole, wrapper included, and looked at me expectantly. "See? Understanding." Kes pinched the bridge of her nose. "I should arrest you for about 15 different violations right now. Get in line. But first, we've got bigger problems." I stood and Duchess's eyes tracked me, but she didn't move. Progress. The syndicate has a base approximately 15 kilometers northeast. I tracked their signal. They're running an operation harvesting Kralix cubs for fighting rings. That got her attention. "How many?" "At least a dozen operatives, maybe more. They've got holding facilities, transport ships, the whole setup. Professional operation." Kes's jaw tightened. "We need to call this in. Get a full tactical team." "Sure. How long will that take?" 3, maybe 4 days for approval and deployment." I gestured at Duchess and her pack. 4 more massive Kralix had emerged from the jungle over the past few hours, all watching us with those unsettling golden eyes. "Think they're going to wait 3 days while the syndicate grabs more of their cubs? That's not how this works, Valdez. We have protocols." "Protocols are great. I love protocols. But right now there are baby Kralix in cages, and Duchess here knows it." I looked at the massive predator. She looked back, and I swear there was understanding there. She brought her whole pack. They're not here for moral support. Kes studied the Kralix, then me, then her shuttle. I could see her running calculations. Even if I agreed, which I'm not saying I am, it's still suicide. 2 humans against a syndicate base. 2 humans and 5 very angry Kralix who know the terrain and have a personal stake in this. I grinned. "Come on, Lieutenant. When's the last time you did something that wasn't by the book? There's a reason we have the book, Valdez." "Yeah, and there's a reason nobody reads it." I sobered up. "Look, I get it. This isn't procedure, but I made a promise, and those cubs don't have 3 days." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she sighed, the sigh of someone about to make a terrible decision. "What's your plan?" "Still working on that part." "Of course you are." I pulled up the holomap from my salvaged scanner. "Here's what I know. The base is in a valley, natural cover on 3 sides. 2 entry points. They've got sensor arrays, but they're focused on aerial approaches, not ground. Their security is designed to keep cubs in, not predators out." "That's something," Kes admitted. Duchess moved closer, which made Kes's hand fly to her weapon, but the Kralix just looked at the holomap, her massive head tilting. Then she huffed and pawed at a section of the terrain. "Did she just—" Kes started. "Mark a route?" "Yeah." I zoomed in where Duchess had indicated. It was a ravine system, invisible from aerial scans. "They've been watching the base. They know the area." Kes looked at Duchess with new respect. "Okay. That's actually useful. Humans and Kralix working together. It's beautiful, really. It's insane." "Those aren't mutually exclusive." I studied the map. "We hit them tonight, fast and loud. Kes provides covering fire and tech support. The Kralix do what they do best. I get in, free the cubs, and we blow the whole operation." "Just like that?" "Just like that." Kes was quiet for a moment. Then she started checking her gear. "I'm going to regret this." "Probably. But think of the story you'll tell." She pulled out a plasma rifle. "If we survive." That's the spirit. Planning a raid with 5 apex predators and 1 very skeptical patrol officer is not something they cover in any training manual. Trust me, I checked. We spent the next 2 hours going over the operation. Kes had managed to pull satellite feeds of the syndicate base, which showed a compound with 3 main buildings, a landing pad, and what looked like detention blocks. These structures here, Kess pointed at the holo display, "are reinforced, probably where they keep the cubs. Armed guards at every entrance, motion sensors, thermal imaging, the works." "So we can't sneak in," I said. "Not conventionally, no." I looked at Duchess and her pack. They'd gathered around us like the world's most intimidating planning committee. Tiny was gnawing on a piece of my ship's hull plating. "Good thing we're not conventional." Kess raised an eyebrow. "You want to send the Kralix in first. Not just send. Coordinate. The syndicate's security is designed for technology, not biology. They won't be expecting a pack of angry parents with a grudge. And if the Kralix decide we're also enemies? They won't. I hoped. Duchess understands we're on the same side. You're basing an entire operation on a hunch that an apex predator understands allegiance. Yep. Kess rubbed her temples. Okay, let's say this works. Let's say the Kralix create enough chaos that you can slip in. How do you plan to free the cubs? The holding cells will be locked down tight. I patted my multi-tool. Haven't met a lock I couldn't convince to open. That's reassuring, she deadpanned. I've been doing this a long time, Lieutenant. Crashing on planets and befriending predators? Improvising, it's my specialty. Duchess made a sound, low and rumbling. The other Kralix responded, a chorus of growls and chirps that sounded almost like communication, which I was realizing it absolutely was. They're coordinating, Kess said quietly. They have a hierarchy, pack tactics. Told you they were smart. One of the other Kralix, slightly smaller than Duchess but with scars across her scales, approached me. She sniffed my hand, then my torn sleeve still wrapped around Tiny's leg. Her eyes, same golden color but harder, stared into mine. Then she dipped her head slightly. Acceptance. Okay, Kess said slowly. I'm officially out of my depth. But if we're doing this, we do it right. I'll position on the ridge here. She marked the holo map. Gives me sight lines on both entry points. I can provide suppressing fire and take out their comms array. Good, that'll blind them to outside reinforcements. The Kralix approach from 3 sides. Here, here, and here. She traced routes. Maximum confusion prevents them from organizing a coordinated defense. And I go in during the chaos following this ravine. I traced the path Duchess had shown us. Get to the detention blocks, free the cubs, plant charges on their equipment. 10 minutes in and out. What could possibly go wrong? Kess said sarcastically. So many things, but we're doing it anyway. She looked at me, really looked at me. Why? You could wait for proper backup, file a report, let the system handle it. I thought about that for a moment. About the sound of Tiny's whimper when he was caught in that trap. About the look in Duchess's eyes when she let me help her cub. About every cargo run I'd done for the wrong reasons and all the times I'd looked the other way because it wasn't my problem. Because someone needs to, I said finally. And I'm here, and I promised. Kess nodded slowly. For what it's worth, you're either the bravest person I've met or the stupidest. Can it be both? She actually smiled at that. Yeah, it can. We spent the remaining time prepping gear. Kess distributed extra weapons, though I stuck with my blaster and multi-tool. She tried to give me tactical armor, but I pointed out I needed to move fast, not be a tank. Stubborn, she muttered. Practical, I corrected. Tiny had fallen asleep against my leg, snoring like a chainsaw. Duchess watched us prepare, those intelligent eyes tracking every movement. When I stood, she stood. When I checked my gear, she checked her pack, chirping commands that they responded to immediately. You think they understand the plan? Kess asked. I think they understand revenge. I looked at Duchess. Don't you, girl? She showed me every one of her teeth in what might have been a smile or a threat, possibly both. As the sun started setting, painting the jungle in orange and purple, I walked over to Duchess. She lowered her massive head to my level. Up close, I could see the scars on her scales, old wounds from previous encounters with poachers. Listen, I said quietly. I know you don't understand all my words, but you understand intent. Those people hurt your cub. They've hurt others. Tonight we end it. You get your family back. I get to keep my promise. Everyone wins except the bad guys. She huffed warm breath in my face that smelled like raw meat and violence. Then, very deliberately, she touched her nose to my forehead. Just for a second. Kess's eyes widened. That's a pack bonding gesture. I've read about it but never seen it. Guess I'm part of the pack now, I said, trying not to show how much that moment had affected me. If we survive this, Kess said, you're going to have one hell of a story. When we survive this, I corrected. Optimism, Lieutenant. It's important. Right, optimism. She checked her chronometer. We move in 30 minutes. Once we start, there's no stopping. Then let's make it count. The syndicate base looked almost peaceful in the evening light. Clean buildings, organized perimeter, landing pad with 2 transport ships ready for launch. Very professional. Very about to become very unprofessional. Kess was in position on the ridge, her rifle scope tracking guards. I was in the ravine with Duchess and 2 other Kralix. The rest of her pack had split off to their designated positions. Tiny, thankfully, had been left behind with one of the adults. Kid didn't need to see this. My comm crackled. In position, Kess whispered. Count 20 hostiles. Mixed species. All armed. Comms array is the tower in the center. Copy that, on your signal. Valdez, don't die. The paperwork would be terrible. I'll do my best. There was a pause. Good hunting. 3 seconds later, a plasma bolt took out the comms tower in a shower of sparks. Alarms screamed. Guards shouted. The base erupted into controlled chaos. Then the Kralix hit them like a furry avalanche with teeth. Duchess went through the eastern perimeter like it was made of paper. Guards scattered, firing wildly. One of them got off a lucky shot that glanced off her scales. She responded by picking him up in her jaws and throwing him into a building wall. He didn't get up. The other 2 Kralix flanked from the north, their roars shaking the compound. More guards poured out of the buildings, but they were panicking now, trying to fight predators they'd only seen in cages. I used the chaos to sprint toward the detention blocks. A guard spotted me, raised his weapon. Kess's rifle spoke from the ridge, and he dropped. You're welcome, she said in my ear. Buying you dinner after this, I gasped, sliding behind cover. The detention block door was reinforced titanium with a biometric lock. Fancy. I pulled out my multi-tool and started working. 10 seconds. 20. The sounds of combat behind me intensified. Valdez, you've got company. 3 guards heading your way. Little busy here. Busy faster. The lock sparked, hissed, and clicked open. I yanked the door wide and slipped inside. Emergency lighting painted everything red. The smell hit me immediately. Fear, waste, pain, the smell of cages. I ran down the corridor. Behind reinforced glass walls, I saw them. Kralix cubs, maybe a dozen of them, huddled in individual cells. Some had injuries. All had that look in their eyes, the one that said they'd given up hope. Not today, I muttered, working on the central control panel. Outside, something exploded. The building shook. Kess's voice. Valdez, they've got heavy weapons now. Speed it up. Working on it. The control panel was encrypted, but the syndicate had gotten lazy. Probably never expected anyone to get this far. I bypassed the security in 45 seconds and hit the master release. Every cell door slid open simultaneously. The cubs didn't move at first. Then one, bolder or more desperate than the others, limped out, saw me, sniffed. I held out my hand slowly. Your mom sent me, I said softly. Well, someone's mom. Come on, let's go home. The cub chirped, uncertain. Then it heard something outside. A roar. Duchess's roar. Every cub in that block suddenly knew rescue when they heard it. They poured out of their cells, a wave of scales and fury and hope. I led them toward the exit, my heart hammering. We made it halfway when he appeared. Varoth, the syndicate boss. He was Threxian, reptilian, 7 feet tall, and holding a plasma cannon that could vaporize a small building. Human, he hissed. Clever little pest. Do you have any idea the credits you've just cost me? Don't really care, I said, putting myself between him and the cubs. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to lower that weapon and let us walk out. He laughed. It sounded like rocks in a blender. Or what? You'll fight me? Humans are weak. Scavengers. Bottom feeders who stumbled into space. Yeah, we get that a lot. I kept my voice calm, even though every instinct screamed to run. But here's the thing about humans. We're stubborn. We don't quit. And we really, really hate bullies. Touching. Pointless, but touching. He raised the cannon. Goodbye, human. I dove left. The plasma bolt missed me by inches, scorching the wall. I rolled, came up with my blaster, fired 3 times. The shots hit his armor, barely scratching it. He laughed again. Is that your best? Nope. I grinned. That is. Duchess crashed through the wall behind him like a wrecking ball made of rage. She'd heard everything, and she was done with people hurting her family. Varoth barely had time to scream. I didn't watch. The cubs needed me. I herded them outside, where the battle was winding down. Kess was still providing cover fire. The Kralix pack had systematically dismantled the syndicate's defenses. Bodies littered the ground. Some were moving, most weren't. All cubs accounted for, I told Kess through the comm. Setting charges now. Make it fast. I'm picking up inbound signals, reinforcements. I planted my emergency charges on every piece of equipment I could find. Transport ships, weapon caches, the main building. When I was done, this base would be archaeology, not architecture. Duchess emerged from the detention block, blood on her jaws. She saw her family, the cubs from the cells, and made a sound I'd never heard before. Pure relief. The cubs swarmed her, chirping and crying. She nuzzled each one, checking for injuries. Then she looked at me. You're welcome, I said. Now let's get out of here before this place becomes a crater. The explosions were visible from orbit, or so Kess told me later. The syndicate base burned beautifully if you're into that sort of thing, which after what I'd seen in those cells, I absolutely was. We'd retreated to a safe distance, humans and Kralix together, watching the fireworks. The cubs were reunited with their families. Tiny was showing off his bandaged leg, like a war wound to the other cubs. Duchess sat next to me, close enough that I could feel her warmth. Incoming, Kess said, pointing at the sky. 3 Galactic Council ships descended, lights flashing. Right on time, now that the danger's over. Typical, I muttered. The Council ships landed and outstepped a whole delegation of officials in their fancy uniforms. Led by Ambassador Corrin, a Vexel who looked perpetually disappointed with the universe. What? He said slowly, looking around at the burning base, the freed cubs and the pack of apex predators lounging around like this was totally normal. Happened here? Kess stepped forward, formal and professional. Ambassador, we responded to a distress call and discovered an illegal syndicate operation, poaching of endangered species. Captain Valdez and I neutralized the threat and freed the captive Kralix cubs. Neutralized, Corrin repeated, staring at the crater where the base used to be. This is neutralized? They started it, I said helpfully. Captain Valdez. He turned to me, and I could see him calculating which regulation I'd violated first. You engaged in unauthorized military action against a recognized, albeit criminal, organization. You damaged property. You freed dangerous creatures without proper containment protocols. You caused an interstellar incident. In my defense, I crashed here. The rest just sort of happened. Duchess rumbled beside me. Corrin took a step back. And somehow, he continued, you formed an alliance with Class 5 predators. This is unprecedented. It's been a weird day, I admitted. Kess cleared her throat. Ambassador, with respect, the syndicate operation was extensive. They had at least 15 cubs in captivity. Captain Valdez's actions, while unorthodox, prevented significant ecological and ethical damage. The Council has been trying to shut down syndicate poaching rings for years. Through proper channels, Corrin emphasized. Through proper channels that weren't working, I said. Look, I get it. I broke rules. But those cubs were dying, and the Kralix knew it. We did what needed doing. Corrin stared at me for a long moment. Then he sighed, a sound that conveyed centuries of bureaucratic exhaustion. You realize this puts the Council in a difficult position. Better than the position those cubs were in. Another sigh. Lieutenant Thorne, your report will be reviewed. Given the circumstances and the successful disruption of criminal activity, I suspect you'll receive a commendation, possibly a promotion." Kes blinked. "Sir, you discovered and neutralized a major syndicate cell. That's good work, even if your methods were questionable." He turned to me. "As for you, Captain Valdez, you're grounded pending investigation. Your ship will be impounded." "About that. My ship is mostly scrap metal now." "Then you're grounded and poor. Congratulations." "Worth it," I said, looking at the cubs playing together, safe and free. Corin followed my gaze. His expression softened slightly, which for a Vexel was like a full emotional breakdown. "Between us, Captain, off the record. What you did today, it was reckless and stupid and violated approximately 47 different regulations. But the galaxy needs more people willing to keep promises to the powerless." He actually nodded at me. "The investigation will find you acted under duress and in defense of endangered species. You'll get your ship repaired and a warning. Try not to make a habit of this." "No promises," I said, then grinned. "Actually, I make lots of promises. That's kind of my thing." As the council officials started documenting the scene, Duchess stood and walked toward her pack. The cubs fell in line, ready to return to their territory. Tiny limped over to me one last time, my torn sleeve still wrapped around his leg. He head-butted my stomach hard enough to knock me back a step, purring loud enough to rattle my teeth. Then he licked my face, which was disgusting and adorable in equal measure. "You take care of that leg," I told him, "and stay away from traps." Duchess approached last. She lowered her massive head, and I reached up to touch her scales. They were warm and surprisingly smooth. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for trusting me." She huffed, warm breath washing over me. Then she did something that made everyone watching go silent. She reached out with one massive paw and gently, carefully touched the torn sleeve on my arm. Where it all started. The pack bonding gesture again, but this time, permanent. "Guess I'm family now," I said, voice rough. She rumbled agreement, then turned and led her family into the jungle. Within moments, they'd vanished like they'd never been there. But I knew they were watching, protecting their territory, which apparently now included one very tired cargo hauler. "That," Kes said, coming to stand beside me, "was the most incredible and terrifying thing I've ever seen. Welcome to my life. Your life is insane. Yeah, but it's never boring." I looked at the ruins of the syndicate base, then at my destroyed ship, then back at the jungle where a family of predators had just adopted me. You know what? I think I'm okay with that. 3 weeks later, I was back in space. The Tin Phoenix had been repaired, mostly on the Council's credits as thanks for shutting down the syndicate operation. Kes got her promotion to commander, and I got a warning, a medal I didn't ask for, and a reputation. Word spreads fast in the galaxy. The human who befriended the Kralix, the cargo hauler who kept his promise. People started hiring me for jobs specifically because I was too stubborn to quit when things got complicated. I was hauling mining equipment to a colony world, nice and boring, when my comm pinged. Emergency frequency. I almost ignored it. Almost. "This is Captain Riker Valdez. Go ahead." Static. Then a voice. Young. Scared. Human. "Captain, please. We're stranded. There's something in the caves." It took my brother. I don't know what to do. I looked at my cargo manifest, looked at the coordinates the kid was broadcasting from, changed course. "Sit tight," I said. "Help's coming, and I promise we're going to get your brother back." Because that's what humans do. We make promises, and we keep them, even when the galaxy thinks we're crazy for trying, especially then.